Hey everybody, KMO here in the truck. This is not the truck. This is not the truck that I drove from New York to California and back to New York in 2013 on that not Manifesting in Meat Space, that was 2010. What was the couch surfing tour in 2013 called? It was mine, my tour. I named it. I don't remember. Don't remember what it was called, but yeah, I drove all over the U.S., really all over, from coast to coast repeatedly, and many times between here in Arkansas and all the way to Maryland and back in that truck. This isn't that truck. That was a four-cylinder, I think a 1991 Ford Ranger manual transmission. This is a slightly newer, I think probably six-cylinder automatic. And it's my mother's truck, but she doesn't drive it. And it mostly just sat around until I moved to Arkansas. And now I drive it, but not that much because I don't go very many places. Anyway, today I finished listening to the book, The Decadent Society, How We Became Victims of Our Own Success by Ross Douthat. Ross is a columnist or a writer of some sort for the New York Times, blue church media. But he's, I think, Catholic. He's certainly a Christian. And he's definitely compassionate towards the Red Tribe. I don't know if he's exactly one of them, but he treats them as if they're human. The one that he seems to sample from the most is Ross Douthat's book, The Decadent Society. And so I thought, hey, I should listen to that. I've got an Audible credit. Why not? And then I went and I saw that it was only an 8-hour book and that it was $13. There's no way I was going to burn a $14, $15 credit on that. So I ended up just buying it outright, and I still have my Audible credit. Any suggestions? But anyway, I just finished listening to it, and I've read or listened to the Meritocracy Trap, and Kotkin's The Coming of Neo-Feudalism. And, it's very much of a piece with these other books that are critical of contemporary culture and also critical of, I can't even call them the left, just mainstream liberals, just mainstream blue church imbibing, normie liberals, Democrats. And this book is not a political screed by any stretch. If anybody presents it as such, they're deliberately misrepresenting it, because this book casts a critical eye on the entirety of the contemporary scene, both Red Tribe and Blue. And he's got plenty of criticism for the Red Tribe, and he zeroes in on what I think is the Red Tribe's main sin, and that is just their gleeful willingness to go down the rabbit hole of all manner of conspiracy theory. I keep wanting to call the Blue Tribe left, and they're not leftist. They're neoliberal. I'd hate to call them liberal, because I know that before, the 20-year campaign by Rush Limbaugh to denigrate that word, it had a different meaning. But in the contemporary sense, yes, liberal people. That's largely it's the liberal tribe that Douthat is examining in this thing. But again, he's not casting blame. He's not looking for scapegoats. In fact, he has a long section on scapegoatism toward the end. I took it in as an audiobook. I've only listened to it once. And for me, listening to an audiobook is sort of like an audition. If I enjoy the audiobook and there's more there than I think I can really recall easily, like it's dense, there's a lot of content to it, and that is what the first listen revealed, well, I'll listen to it again. And if on the second listen, I'm not getting bored, or I'm not thinking, oh, I heard this already, let's move it forward. If I'm like, wow, there's great stuff here, that's when I start thinking about getting a copy of the physical book. So I'm not there yet. I did give it a 5-star review on Audible when I finished listening. And I actually composed a little micro, capsule review just with voice to text on the phone. But I'm not ready to buy the book yet. I'm certainly ready to listen to it again, particularly, and this, I'm jumping to the end here and jumping past the substance of his book, but I'll tell you why it appealed to me more than just, a incisive cultural critique, just a competent critical examination of contemporary culture. Why it's more than that for me is he seems to be a science fiction fan, and more importantly, a speculative science fan. And he ends the book, like the final chapter, not the the outro. I'm a podcaster. Outro, epilogue. The final chapter is about the Fermi Paradox. And, maybe we as a stagnant society need some external push to get us past this point that we're at. Maybe it is the comfort and the stagnation and the decadence that comes from the material success of a successful global culture that is one of the great filters. It's one of the things that prevents a species from becoming a truly spacefaring society and creating a multi-planet civilization, and then eventually a multi-star system civilization. But if you're not just listening to the sound of my voice because you've been listening to me for so many years, that it's just a comfort, but you're actually listening to what I'm saying and asking questions, you're probably asking, what do you mean by decadent? How are we a particularly decadent society? And, for me, the term decadent, it brings to mind the image of a slender woman's hand with long, cultivated, painted, shaped fingernails holding a strawberry that's been dipped in chocolate, and she's just about to take a bite. It has to do with sensuality and luxury and elevating pleasure, bodily pleasures and sexuality over supposedly more wholesome things, or more noble things like hard work or creative expression. Diligence and entrepreneurism and just serious, worthy human endeavor is the opposite of decadence. But decadence, that's not how he's using the word. Decadence, is etymologically related to decay. Something that is decadent isn't necessarily ready to fall. It's not necessarily collapsing. It's not necessarily in a handbasket on the way down. But it is past its peak. And some of the symptoms of decadence that he talks about are things like the failure of institutions. Just the fact that politics and government can't act decisively in the way that it used to. That really we have just little minor adjustments depending. We have these landslide elections where we've got a sea change in which party is controlling the Congress and in the White House, and every few years there's a sea change, but really not a whole lot of policy gets enacted. One of the symptoms of decadence is that we just don't expect things to work anymore. We don't trust politicians. We don't trust the media. We don't expect them to tell the truth. We've become jaded. We've become cynical. We just don't expect very much. And that really hit me. I think it was this morning. Maybe it was yesterday. Time, you know how time goes. I saw on Twitter, somebody asked, what do you think of the truckers' protest in Canada? And my mailbox had filled up with, people who are very anti-COVID totalitarianism. They're pushing back against what they perceive as totalitarianism around COVID. They're championing the trucker strike. And I looked at a Vice magazine mailing. I still get their emails. And I didn't read the article, but I could tell from the headline they were basically saying that the truckers are Nazis. I didn't open any of that. All of the pro-trucker stuff I completely ignored. The anti-trucker stuff I completely ignored. And I didn't answer the tweet. I didn't participate with it online. I didn't engage with it. But I thought about it. And I thought, I don't expect the blue church media to approach this topic with anything resembling good faith. They're going to spin it to serve their narrative, to serve their master's needs. And there's just not going to be any attempt whatsoever at good faith coverage. But on the other hand, the people who are always sending me email about COVID conspiracies, I know some conspiracies are true. I just don't care. I'm not going to get wrapped up in anybody's mania over COVID. And so I don't open those emails. I don't care. And I realized that both of these antagonistic takes on COVID and the truckers and protests, that neither one of them would really be looking to get at the truth. They would both sides, and I realize there's a multiplicity of viewpoints. So, saying both sides condenses things absurdly, comically. But I realized my not expecting anybody to try to get at the truth or to try to accurately represent some activity or social phenomenon is a symptom of decay. It is a symptom of the decadence of the current society, that stuff works just well enough to keep the whole machine running for another day, but there's just no expectation on anybody's part of fair play or good faith or diligent efforts to get at the truth. Everybody is just running their fucking scams. That's decadence. But some of the things that, I'm going to have to cut a lot out of this video if I'm going to keep it under 15 minutes. But some of the things that he talked about early in the book, which really endeared the book to me, because this is a topic I've been thinking a lot about recently, is population and birth rates. And pretty much the whole world outside of Africa has fallen below replacement rate in their fertility. So without immigration, pretty much the whole industrialized so-called first world populations would be shrinking. Which to Douthat and also to, heads of state in previous centuries, that's a low birth rate spelled low vitality, a low dynamism for a society. A society with a low birth rate it's basically one that's getting old. And this wasn't Douthat's original notion. He borrowed it from somebody else, but he said, imagine there's two towns. They have the exact same population in terms of numbers, but in one town, the average age is 28, and in the other town, the average age is 58. They can be the same in terms of their politics and their economics and their technology. Those are going to be very different places to live. Young people are willing to take risks. They are willing to work really, really hard for long periods for the possibility of, rapid advancement or substantial advancement down the line. Older folks, not so much. And so when I was in the peak oil community and, overlapping with the environmentalist community, there's a strong hatred of humanity in both of those communities, and a strong urge to have the belief that people are bad be validated by science, and for that validation to include the notion that really there should be fewer humans and that reproduction is bad and that people who don't reproduce are virtuous. And I think that's just beyond stupid, beyond just so dysfunctional, so contrary to the human reality, the lived reality of human civilizations, that a society that's decided that humans are bad and that they themselves shouldn't project themselves into the future, they shouldn't project their beliefs, their cultural traditions, their religions, their nation, none of that deserves to be, projected into the future. I'm not telling anybody to, you might as well, if that's your attitude, you're just taking up space here, you're just running out the clock. You're not really participating in any grand project. Anyway, the more I sit here and talk about the book, the more stuff from the listening is going to come to mind, and this can go on and on, so I'm going to stop at this point. I think it was Benjamin who said he'd like to hear me just ramble about some topic, and this wasn't it. But that's all I'm doing at this point, so I'm going to stop. I will talk to you again soon.